Why you start a business, you should give a shit, you should care and put passion and energy, because that's what will keep you going through the dark days and the shitty days. I knew that I really wanted to work with the Dead Rabbit. I knew I really wanted to live in New York, and I had this belief in myself that I could do the job. It's worth sending an email. Like, what's the worst they can do? Say no. Design needs to be informed by strategy. You need to have a real purposeful mission and understanding of what you want to do as a brand. And with Dead Rabbit, that was clear. It was tradition meet tomorrow. But it's like these pinch me moments. We're sitting in Belfast doing work for a 5-star hotel in Amsterdam to a 5-star resort in Dominican Republic. You know, we're designing a signature restaurant inside Grand Central Terminal in New York at the moment.
What's the message there? Like, to put yourself in places that define these opportunities?
Yeah, like, try everything. You can say it's bluffing, or you can just say it's, you know, a bit of self-confidence in yourself. You treat every project almost the same, and that you apply the same process and the same approach to it despite the budget. And I think, you know, you should care about the small ones and care as much about the big ones. If you can find a niche and double down on it, like, brilliant. I think that's advice that I would give. But
welcome to the Dig podcast. I am your host, and I am honoured to be your host. My name is Caroline O'Neill, and the Dig podcast is my passion, telling real stories from real people about work, about life, about challenges, about the good times and the bad times. And I'm honoured to have you listen each week. So I want to ask you for a wee bit of help today, if you can help me. So thousands of you listen to the podcast each week, which I'm so grateful for. But there's still people, and I do this as well, but they haven't hit that subscribe button or that follow button. So if you listen on YouTube, for example, if you hit subscribe, or if you listen on Apple or Spotify, if you hit follow, it just takes a second, then it means the podcast can grow, and I can keep reaching out to people and getting those great guests with all that great advice for you, the listener. So that's just a wee ask from me to you today. And now we're going to hear from our amazing sponsor, and we couldn't make it happen without them. Let's be honest, most business owners don't have time to build fancy funnels or write long sales emails. That's why Score App is such a game changer. It lets you create a simple scorecard or quiz that does all the heavy lifting for you. You create a short set of questions based on your expertise, and within minutes, your audience gets personalised results with clear next steps. People get value and join your email list. There is no tech headaches and no marketing overwhelm. You can have your first scorecard up and running in less than an hour, even if you're like me and not techie. If you've been putting off generating new leads because it all just felt too hard, then this is your sign. Visit scoreapp.com/dig and make it easy for yourself. Look at my gorgeous surroundings. Where am I? I am in Crown Creative. And where is that? Well, it's in London, it's in New York, it's in Belfast. We're in Belfast today in the flagship offices, and I am with the founder, Ryan Crown, who is a leading figure in creative branding, and I have him in the hot seat. Welcome to the Dig podcast, Ryan.
thank you, Caroline.
I said to you, I'll be about an hour, and you were like, an hour? That's very long. I was like, it flies, because I always jump in. How did you do that? Perfect. Thank you for being here. This is fabulous.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space. Like, we've been in it 18 months now, and it was Todd Architects before. They did all the amazing work that you see here, and then we moved in, as I said, 18 months ago and did a little improvement. But it actually was a whiskey bonding warehouse for Bushmills. So it's a great location for us. Neighbourhood's around the corner. As I said, dangerously close to the Jig of York on a Friday afternoon. Absolutely. That's great. It's in a great neighbourhood, and we're going to talk about neighbourhood later as well. But for people who don't know, I found out a lot about you over the last few weeks when we've been prepping for this, and I'm blown away. But just talk to us about your background. I know that before we actually came on the podcast, you even give me more information about at school, and I think that's important for young people that will be listening as well. It's not always the same path that you start out on. Talk to us about that, those early days. Yeah, you know, like the trajectory of like where I am now to, you know, 15 or 16-year-old me is like very, very different. I was always interested in like computers and IT and technology, but also really interested in drama and the arts. So I studied drama and English at Queen's, wanted to be an actor for a year or two, and decided that wasn't for me, thank goodness. And Yeah, stayed at Queen's for 3 years to my undergrad. Ended up doing my master's there, and during that time got really interested in writing theatre reviews and had nowhere to put these reviews. So I set up a website. That website needed to be improved and look nicer. So I taught myself how to design websites. And by the age of 20 or 21, I found myself like freelancing as a web designer whilst at university, and I was designing websites from coffee shops and interior design stores in Belfast and pubs and restaurants, and that sort of led to me getting a job at the Lyric Theatre as a marketing director, because I had this portfolio of work, and I was really interested in social media and really interested in web design. And because I had studied drama, this felt like the perfect job for me, because I was so interested in the arts but also really interested in design digital. So I got a job there, stayed for 18 months. It was like my dream job at that age. And from there I kept freelancing, doing more websites. And then I actually started doing a bit of work with a design agency here in Belfast called Drinksology. And one of my first projects working alongside them was to design the website for the Dead Rabbit. And I had known Sean and Jack because I did an internship out in New York when I was 21 years of age, which was quite a lot of fun. And Sean and Jack were just setting up the bar at that stage, so we had kept in touch, and they were having great success and winning awards left, right, and centre. And as I was designing this website, I contacted them and said, I would love to come work for you, and I think you sort of need somebody like me, which can handle social media, handle website, handle some art direction and creative direction. And was sort of bluffing it and kind of didn't really know what I was up to, but they took a punt on me and invited me out for an interview. Sold myself to both of them and to their partners. And
that wee bit before you go on, because that is massive. And I'm listening to you, you're self-taught on the website bit.
Yep.
Then your self-belief pushed you to say the things you knew you wanted to do but you hadn't learned yet. You're saying, you bluffed a wee bit there till you got the job.
Yep.
There's loads of people who listen to this podcast, people who are working, people in business, but also younger people trying to find their way. Like, what's the message there? Like, to push yourself, put yourself in places to find these opportunities?
Yeah, like try everything and, get in amongst everything. And, you can say it's bluffing, or you can just say it's, a bit of self-confidence in yourself. And I knew that I really wanted to work with the Dead Rabbit. I knew I really wanted to live in New York. And I had this belief in myself that I could do the job. And, sitting down with Sean and Jack and, basically pitching to them at that age of like 24, 25, like, this is what you need and I can do it. And, thankfully they believed in me and believed in the pitch. And, I came home like that weekend. I was only there for a couple of days sort of interviewing. I came home and, had a job offer from both of them, inviting me out to work with the Dead Rabbit and this other bar that they're opening called Blacktail. And the rest is sort of history, because like when I moved to New York, like my partner Emma had just graduated from social work, and literally the next week we get this email to say, you've got a job offer in New York. So we packed the suitcases and moved to New York. And honestly, that's where the bug got me, in terms of just the world of hospitality, the world of design. And like the work with Dead Rabbit was incredible for over a year. And then I moved to their hospitality group, which at that time had like 20 plus different venues and concepts across Manhattan, everything from a Michelin star restaurant to steakhouses to Italian restaurants to Irish pubs. And I got to be like fully immersed into this whole world of hospitality as a 26-year-old creative director, and had this opportunity to rebrand them and to design menus and to design brands and websites and run their social media and do photo shoots. And just the vastness of experience and just the range and diversity of different concepts and different projects, it was mind-blowing. It was a lot of work, because I worked probably 14, 15-hour days, and it was a slog, but it was also so enjoyable. And it was like a million miles from my upbringing and my background, and even what I had studied at university. And I found myself in the middle of New York running these incredible concepts and incredible designs for, a range of different venues. And I was pinching myself most weeks, being like, I can't believe I'm sort of doing this. And then obviously a bit of imposter syndrome, creeps in.
We'll talk about that, but you wouldn't have been there had you not took those actionable steps of reaching out to Sean and Jack and pitching that pitch bit. Like people would stumble at that. You mentioned imposter syndrome. So how did you self-talk to yourself like you can do this? How do you get past that like imposter bit?
That's a good question. I think as I said, like I always wanted to go back to New York, like spending a summer there, that internship, fell in love with the city and was so inspired by it. And at that age, my partner and I kind of wanted to move out of Belfast and travel. And we were looking at different cities. Will we go to Dublin? Will we go to Copenhagen? Will we move to London? And then, the opportunity sort of presents itself to say, okay, you're doing a website for the Dead Rabbit. And I put my mind to it and just say, like, it's worth sending an email. Like, what's the worst they can do? Say no. So I send that email and, the rest is sort of history. They take a punt on me, but you also have to prove yourself. You have to work really hard. And it was incredibly tough that first year because you're moving to a new city, a whole new group of friends, or lack thereof. When you move, we moved in like the depths of winter too, and if you've been in New York in December, it's pretty grim. So trying to just navigate an entire new city, and a new job, and the sort of pace that people work in New York and in America compared to back here, it was just it was a massive departure of everything or anything I've ever known. So it was tough, but to your question, you just sort of have to have that self-belief and determination and grit to and there was tough days where you're like, I might move home and this isn't for me. It's overwhelming the amount of things that you have to think about and do, but ultimately it's about that grit and determination. I think that's what sort of, it's where I am today is because of that.
Definitely. And it's just so interesting to hear that sometimes progress doesn't happen unless you put yourself in those positions. And then whenever you said that so you obviously were working as part of that hospitality group, but then you had again Ryan strikes. I could do this by myself. So talk about that, because again, me and you talked before we came on camera, how do you contain your busy mind? But at that time you thought, I could do this by myself, didn't you?
Yeah. So the project that that was sort of enlightening was the hospitality group had this incredible restaurant called Harry's, still does, but Harry's Steakhouse, and it was launched in 1972, and it was and is today this like Wall Street institution, and named after Peter, who runs the hospitality group, his father, and this like amazing basement restaurant in Hanover Square in the financial district, and it needed to be rebranded and sort of relaunched for the modern age. And Peter and I worked really closely in launching this brand. And again, I think I was 26 years of age, and Peter, the owner of this hospitality group, is taking me to the best steakhouses in New York for research and making me like go to incredible places all around the world to gather research for this restaurant that we were rebranding. And I spent 6 months in the archives working on all this amazing material that had been gathered over 30 plus years of the restaurant. Everything from Harry being the front page of Forbes magazine and being called the patron saint of Wall Street. And it was just an incredibly immersive, very enjoyable experience. And we were working with this design agency called Farewell in New York, and this amazing founder and creative director, Brian, who I'm still really close with today, did the branding with us. And I remember at every meeting wanting to be on his side of the table rather than mine, because I was just so enamored by these worlds that he was creating and this brand universe that he was creating for Harry's. And it was everything from Harry's signature on the matchbox, and it was these beautiful like sort of oversized menus and gold foil business cards and sign painting on the windows, and every like guest touch point that we were doing for the last few years at the hospitality group, but seeing it all come to life out of one venue and this amazing mind of Brian and Farewell. when the project finished, I remember saying to Brian, "Oh my goodness, like I'd love to be on your side of the table." And he was like, "You totally could. Like, you're really." He was very complimentary and said, like, "You definitely should." So I remember I took about a month off, and Emma and I went traveling around the west coast of America, and I came back and I sat down with Peter and Paul, the two owners of the hospitality group, and again pitched them rather than say, "Look, I'm handing in my notice." I said, "What if you don't lose an employee, but rather you gain a studio at your disposal?" Again, completely bluffing this, but they sort of
I'm like, well, this sounds brilliant.
but they bought into it. They loved the vision. They loved the idea that rather than just have me sitting in one seat as their creative director, I pitched them the idea that I'm going to set up my own agency. We're going to have a copywriter and a social media person. We're going to have somebody that, will work on your website, and we're going to have a graphic designer, and then we're going to have me. And we're going to be a small, tight-knit team, but we'll work across all the brands, especially Harry's and the District, this other concept that they had. And they went for the idea, which for me gave me that confidence and that ability to, like, quite literally launch a business overnight, because I went home and started thinking about what it was going to be called and what we were going to do. And over a week we had launched Crown Creative, and I pitched it back to Peter and Paul, and I said, "Here it is, like, it's a full service agency. We're going to do A, B, and C for you."
And just to jump in, did you have the copywriter and the social?
No, not at all. No, absolutely not. So I pitched them on this idea that didn't really exist.
Because you create whatever you want and then make it happen once you get
and
the
you can see that more nowadays than ever. Like, people can launch businesses from their bedroom, and they look incredible, and a lot of it sometimes is fluff, but they went on this idea with me and believed in it. And as I said, within a week or two, I had sort of transitioned out of the hospitality group and found myself in this co-working space, trying to hire the designer and trying to hire the social media person. And it probably took 4 to 6 weeks, and we were interviewing, getting the right people, and we worked with this amazing designer actually back in Belfast, and we had a copywriter down in Dublin, and we had a social media person that was in New York with me, and we had all this like great freelance talent, and we were all of a sudden running a design agency or a creative agency. And it just began to snowball, because like the risk was sort of taken out in the fact that they basically took my salary and said, "We'll give you that per month to support our different brands." So we could hit the ground running, and I was able to actually pay people from day one, which was amazing. Like, not a lot of agencies have that fortune when they decide to set up. But it then just began to snowball, and one client led to the next, and probably after 6 months we were designing fully fledged restaurants in New York, and we were designing bars, and we were still working with the likes of the Dead Rabbit, and we were working with Harry's. And Peter introduced me to one of his friends who was leaving Facebook as an employee and setting up his first restaurant. And Joe, that client that Peter introduced me to in those first 6 months, is still a client today, 6-7 years later. Like, he was one of our very first like proper clients that weren't connected to the hospitality group. And as I said, 7 years later, he's still a client of ours, which is amazing. But as I said, things just began to grow sort of organically, but we definitely didn't have the hospitality focus. We were just sort of saying yes to everything and everyone. And, we were really busy. I moved from a co-working space to a dedicated office in Brooklyn. We hired 2 more designers. We hired an account manager. And as I said, we were taking everything from, restaurants and coffee shops and pizza slice stores, but we were also doing a finance startup, or we were doing, different products and different like consumer packaged good brands. So it was a little like diverse and a bit sort of all over the shop. And then COVID came, which was delightful.
That's what I was going to say, because I read a feature when I was doing my research, as well as talking to you, the creative boom, and then I went down a rabbit hole and started went on to all the other articles we're writing on people. But the bit that was you talked about those kind of hard times when you were growing, and then COVID, like everybody, like I don't know when the time's going to come when we don't talk about what happened whenever COVID happened, but it's so important.
It is, yeah.
But because it kind of went just drew a line under your work there a wee bit, didn't it? Like,
well, yeah, because hospitality was so hard hit.
Yeah.
Everything was closed, and At the time, we were doing some really like quite big projects at that stage of our company, and I remember clients emailing us saying we're just completely cancelling that, we're just pausing it, or we're stopping everything, and we had staff to pay, we had offices to pay for, and there wasn't work coming in, and basically everything sort of grew to a halt, and it was pretty terrifying, and we were 18 months or 2 years into running an agency, and I thought at that stage like it's probably time to throw the towel in and close things down. And Emma and I left New York with her dog and a couple of suitcases back to Ireland, thinking that we would stay here for 6 months. Like, we left all of our belongings in New York, we put them into a storage container. I was like, we'll come back to the city in 6 months, because New York was at a standstill. Nothing was happening. You were still paying, crazy amounts of money on rent, and to just exist there when the city was in complete lockdown, it didn't really make sense. And we wanted to come home and see family, see friends. But that 6 months has now turned into 5+ years, and
Here
we
you
are
are.
still here. So as much as COVID was terrible at the time, it gave us this sort of fresh perspective to look at the business anew, and almost like restart and reset. And it was good. I think, people have various experiences of COVID where it was great for their business, or it was great where they were able to take time off work. We were sort of like somewhere in between, in that the first couple of months was an opportunity to sort of reset and sort of take stock. But then when we moved back to Belfast, I just had this. I had a waiver at one moment of saying I'm going to go apply for jobs because it's safe and it's secure. And I remember Emma laughing at me like,
You'll never
being like,
last.
you're never going to work for anybody else, and you're like, there's not a chance that you're going to do that. And then it was head down to restart Crown Creative, and we started here in Belfast, and we started to slowly grow the team, and we made some integral hires. We hired this guy, Simon Worthington, who is our current managing director, but started as an account manager with us. We hired David Carafano in New York, who again started as a freelance strategist and is now our commercial and strategy director. And Kate Tracy, she started as a midweight designer and is now our lead designer. Like 2 or 3 crucial key hires, which over the last sort of 5 years has transformed our business. And like, we have an amazing team, but those 3 individuals especially have been an incredible part of what we've become. And as we started on really small local projects here in Belfast, because that's where I find myself, and I'm always a big believer that good work gets you good work. So no matter the location, like, we were in Belfast and we were doing beautiful work in a small city like Belfast, but we were getting recognition for it, and we were getting awards. And we launched a business called the Toast Office, which was here on Hill Street, and it was a pop-up cheese toasty grilled cheese business.
No way.
And we did it
Sounds like
during
heaven.
it was great. But it ended up winning Restaurant and Bar Design Award, and it won a ton of design awards, and we got a lot of recognition and press, and that sort of put a bit of a spotlight back on Crown. And then we started doing more work in America, and because we had hired David in New York, things started to just organically pick up again. And year 3 of Crown was our sort of biggest and best year, and we were taking on hotel projects, and we were taking on independent restaurants in New York, and we were doing projects in London while still having a real grasp in Belfast. And we were working on the likes of Orto Pizza Bar, we were working on Waterman around the corner, and we were doing like lots of like really nice local work. But then at the same time, we were growing this team in Belfast that were working on an international stage. Like, we were doing beautiful work for hotels globally, and we were doing beautiful brands in New York. And again, it was one of those like pinch me moments. Like, we over 12 months we've restarted this agency, we've grown to a team of 5 or 6, we were doing our best work, and all of a sudden I was like actually really enjoying being in Belfast. And I was still splitting my time between New York and Belfast, and I was going back quite regularly, but I fell back in love with Belfast. I loved the quality of life that we had here, and loved the people, of the buzz and the community. But then I loved getting on a plane and getting back into the thick of it in New York and getting inspired. So that was...
And you see that we not that wee bit, but that piece about working on smaller projects that then reaps the recognition. I think sometimes people can feel like they're getting nowhere, but they're still busy and they're working. But there is that element of those projects you're working on are a real showcase of what you can do, isn't it?
And I think as a studio, we have a really wide range of clients and a wide range of budgets. So like to work on something maybe smaller and more local, it would be easy to disregard it versus something like an international hotel chain that you're repositioning or rebranding, because they're so different in terms of scope and fee and timeline. But we try to apply the same approach and process to each project, because you actually don't know where the spotlight could come from. And like we've proven that with the likes of Toast Office, that we're still getting messages today via our website or via Instagram saying, oh, I noticed the Toast Office brand that you won, or I saw this press article in the Toast. That's brilliant. And this is 3-4 years ago that we won the recognition for it, but people are still talking about it. And some of our work with a big hotel chain that we do a lot of work for actually came on the back of something like Toast Office or Hill Street Hatch, because they love the sort of dynamism of these like small concepts that could be grown and scaled. And it ended up turning into this massive portion of work that we ended up doing with the largest hotel chain in the world, doing these scalable brands. And that came from these tiny concepts. So, you try to you treat every project almost the same, and that you apply the same process and the same approach to it despite the budget. And I think you should care about the small ones and care as much about the big ones.
Such good advice. And actually that was my last the last thing, but I'm just going to bring it in now. Where was my quote? I haven't got it written down. It was, you said to me on the phone, I can't even find it now in my notes, you do good work with good people, not based on like the price of the budget. It's all about the good work with the good people. That stuck to me.
If you can find a client that is passionate and wants to achieve something great, or wants to go on a journey with you, regardless of budget or regardless of scope, those are the exciting ones. And I think some of the projects that we're working on now, everything from, we're helping the Lyric Theatre here locally sort of refresh their brand. And like you go into a meeting with those people and they're so passionate, they're so creative, they care about so much about what they do.
Yeah.
That's so inspiring for us as creatives and for our designers and for our team to work with like-minded people and passionate people, and that could be carried across to a small bakery that we're doing in, the North Coast, that we're helping rebrand and do their interiors. The founder is so passionate. He cares about so much about what he does, and like the bakery or the baked goods that he produces, and like to work with good people. That's like almost the most important part. It's the dream. It's because you get to work with these passionate individuals that actually care about what they're doing. And of course, there are projects that are, bigger scopes and, bigger clients with larger teams. And sometimes that passion can get diluted. And ultimately, you try to approach it with the same process of saying, well, we need to find where we can get people excited and where we can get them bought into this idea that we're doing, or the brand that we're building. And, every project is different. But, for us, I think how we select clients is about those good people, or a good client who's sitting in front of us, say, like, do we believe in what they're trying to do? And I think, like, you've spoken to Anthony at Regency House. When I sat down with Anthony I met Anthony for a coffee, not to even talk about work or to pitch our services, and just his enthusiasm and his passion for what he's trying to do and to build was so infectious. And I think he felt the same way with me in terms of what I'm trying to do with design, that we left that meeting. And I didn't go to the meeting saying, oh, I'm going to pitch for work. And he didn't come to the meeting saying, I'm going to go hire a design agency. And both of us left the meeting, text each other, and I said, I'd love to work together. Yeah. And it's just, if you can find good people to work with, the rest should be like hopefully quite straightforward. And
I know, and what he has done with that place, and you guys, what you've all done, oh my God, it's just magical. And you're right, he has the passion. Yeah. Actually, it's been on the podcast as well, so I know where his vision and his drive and all, he just has it.
And it's infectious when you're around him. That passion exudes, and it exudes to our whole team. It's not just me, it's Tasman, the project manager, or it's Maddie, the designer who's working on it. They love, or Nikki and David, who did the strategy in that project, they love being in a room together with Anthony and Andrea and their team, because they're passionate. And like that's what we're striving for when we're working with clients, is like, can you bring that level of passion or the level of enthusiasm that you want to do something different. Like there's nothing worse than sitting in a room with a client and they say, I just want to be like them, or just make us look like that. That's really not
A
for
red
us.
flag.
Yeah, that's a red flag. We want people that do want to sort of push boundaries or want to do something different, or are coming with it from a different perspective, and you can get bought into that vision of theirs and go on a journey with them. And like, we're 18 months, 2 years in working with Anthony, and it's on different scopes, and we'll start here and then we'll do this for him, and then there's this, and they're building phase 3 at the moment with more rooms and a restaurant and a members club, and we've been able to go on that sort of larger journey. And I think that's where we see ourselves a bit different than a traditional sort of design agency, where you look at a scope, you finish the scope of work and you hand over the deliverables and call it a day. You know, we preach about this idea of creative partnership to our clients, where we're fully invested. We're bought into the vision that you're trying to achieve, and no matter the scope or the budget, we're going to go on that journey with you. And you can see that with the work with Dead Rabbit, 3 years of this creative partnership, and we have looked at everything for them, from furniture design, the soap in the bathrooms, the music that's being played, the artwork on the walls, the uniform, the menus, their website, their social media, their art direction, everything we've looked at and considered as a creative partner, rather than just say, oh, we're their design agency and we get to design their menus or their coasters. We've thought about the entire guest experience, from the moment you might land on social media or the moment you land on their website. It should look and feel and act the same way that it does when you're in the bar, when you're in that environment. And I think that's so important. And that's the type of work that we love doing, that we can sort of go a layer deeper with a client and almost become an extension of their team, where we're really bought into what they're trying to achieve. And those are like dream projects. Like the work with Dead Rabbit with Jack over the last 3 years has, you know, I think been some of our best work. We've designed award-winning menus, we've designed custom pieces of furniture, we've done interior design, we've done website design, we've done strategy, we've built new concepts. Like the list is endless with that, but that also comes from a client that trusted us, who wanted to go on that journey with us too. It wasn't, we've got this really tight scope of work and we've got this budget and this timeline, go do it. For us, we were able to sort of zoom out and sort of go on the journey with Jack and almost plan, what would 3 years of creative partnership look like? What should we tackle first? What are we going to tackle next year? What are the things we'd love to achieve by year 3? And it was this like quite extensive developed strategy that we knew we couldn't tackle everything within those first 12 months. So we had to almost make Jack a little patient, which he's not good at.
Absolutely.
So we had to tell him, like, that's happening next year. Like, let's simmer down here.
But someone like that too is good, because it's
well, that enthusiasm, that drive
yes.
pushes you along. And I look back on, like, we're trying to build a case study at the moment for Dead Rabbit, and it's like a website in of itself, because the amount of work that we've done with Jack and with his partners and the different brands that we've created, you'd never do that for sort of one traditional client. So that level of trust and that level of creative partnership that I'm talking about, that we offer to, you know, other clients, I think that's what separates us from most other agencies, is that we get fully bought in, rather than, as I said, just stick to the tight deliverables or the thing that they're after. We try to zoom out and go a bit deeper and a bit larger.
And that's definitely what you're good at, because you can feel, like, I've never been to the Dead Rabbit, but I've been to the Dead Rabbit. I have been, well, I've interviewed Jack, but then I became immersed in the online world.
Yeah.
And whenever anybody's going to New York and I go to the Dead Rabbit, why am I saying that?
Yeah.
Why? Because you guys as a team and Jack and all have worked together to create that feeling. Yep. And I haven't even been, so I just think that's incredible. And I suppose you said to me there was something you build Dead Rabbit around, a concept, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Rebecca, who is the copywriter and social media manager that we brought on when we were sort of rebranding Dead Rabbit, is incredible with words, and one of the sort of the most talented copywriters and sort of thinkers that I've worked with in a long time. But Rebecca came up with this sort of mantra or sort of mission statement, which was tradition meet tomorrow. And it was this line of, how can we honor the past of tradition, of these amazing Irish pubs that, you know, Jack gets his inspiration from and wants the ethos and feeling when you step into Dead Rabbit. You want to feel like you're stepping into an Irish pub in Ireland, not one of these copycat Irish
Yes.
pubs in America that we've all been to that are tricolour over the door, serving green pints and,
And
you know,
leprechauns.
and leprechauns
You
everywhere.
talked about that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the idea of tomorrow was, well, how do we push that forward then? So how do we honour the past but keep pushing it forward to tomorrow? How do we reimagine what an Irish bar is for today, for tomorrow, for the 21st century? And we basically use that as our mantra and our mission statement to go back to on every creative decision that we made for Dead Rabbit, be it the soap in the bathroom or the artwork on the walls or the music in the stereo. It was, does it ladder up to tradition meet tomorrow? And I think that process, working with Dead Rabbit, and also just how we've defined our process at Crown, the idea that design needs to be informed by strategy. You need to have a real purposeful mission and understanding of what you want to do as a brand. And with Dead Rabbit, that was clear. It was tradition meet tomorrow. We want to honour the past, we want to celebrate the future, and we want to celebrate what contemporary Ireland looks like. And being able to use that mantra or mission statement at every sort of creative touch point or expression of the brand allowed us to make decisions quicker, you know, as decision makers, but also it allows consistency across the brand. There's nothing that you step into Dead Rabbit and go, that's a bit random and that's there, or the music seems a bit strange. Everything ladders up to this, like, you know, this mission statement. So that was an integral part of the success of Dead Rabbit. And again, that comes from a really good team. It was everything from the videographers and the director of music and the director of live events, and even Mark, the director of Irish Whiskey. Everyone was bought into the idea of tradition meet tomorrow. The fact that we put it on the t-shirts of the staff, so it was right front and center when you visited the bar. And you know, that then ladders into other brand expressions, like the touch points or how the brand talks online, or again through Rebecca, like we have this statement over the door where it just says welcome home over the bar of Dead Rabbit, and it is two words that totally encapsulate what we are trying to do with the Dead Rabbit. You're coming home. They're welcoming you back into their home, where you should feel safe and comfortable and should feel this like Irish bar experience that we sort of take for granted here in Ireland because we're so rich of it. But when you're in, you know, downtown New York, in bustling Manhattan, that little moment of solace to step into a bar, to be welcomed home and have those Irish touch points that are actual authentic. Like that is, it's pretty special.
It is, and that's good advice maybe to people who are listening or feeling a bit lost when it comes to branding in their perhaps hospitality, or any businesses listening would like starting at the start like that, about what do you stand for and what do you mean and how are we going to, like, that's such good advice for people. That
so most of our work, actually, like every piece of work that leaves Crown as a studio today and sort of over the last 3-4 years starts with strategy. Like, we don't put pen to paper or think about color, think about typography or logos or word marks or anything like that before we have a deep dive with the client. And that can range, you know, for some clients we might go and visit the property with them, we might go and do market research with them, we might spend a couple of days looking at their competitors and doing different sort of interesting research trips. But it could also just be getting in a room with them and hashing it out together and asking them questions that sort of can get to the root of what they're wanting to do and what they're wanting to achieve. And that means when we do put pen to paper and our designers start to think about the brand that they're building and the worlds that they're creating, you have something to go back to time and time again that sort of steers you the right direction, rather than, like, I think it's so easy nowadays to create beautiful looking brands, but they don't mean anything, they don't stand for anything, there's no longevity to them. So the idea that you can create a brand or you can create an identity that actually has purpose, that has a narrative, that tells a story or wants to, you know, get a point across, that's brands that sort of have a bit of legacy to them and can stand the test of time.
I think that's going to be an eye-opener for people who are listening, because people are so busy doing what they know they're good at. Have they really thought about what their brand looks like, stands for, and what their mission is? So
especially nowadays in AI, where you know, the likes of Canva or other tools can, you know, push out a logo in seconds. And yeah, you can take it and you can run with it and it might look nice and it might look attractive, but actually, what are you trying to achieve with that logo? Like, does it actually mean something? What does it tell a story of? Does it have some purpose or narrative behind it? And I think that's what we're interested in. And, you know, there's plenty of other agencies and designers out there that want to, you know, push out beautiful work. But I think for us, it needs to be purpose driven. It needs to have a narrative, and it needs to be able to, as they stand the test of time. And that happens by putting strategy first and getting into the weeds with a client and understanding what they're trying to achieve. And then you can go into design. And then I said all those other brand expressions and touch points, be it menus or signage or websites or social media, there's like a brand book that you can go back to. There is a piece of strategy that you can go and look at and read and understand what the brand is trying to do, rather than just, oh, that's a nice looking logo, but what's it there to do? Or, you know, how does it ladder back up to anything? So it's important to start with strategy.
Much more than a logo, for sure. And this is, like, we've talked about the Dead Rabbit, and we're going to talk about your great work here in Belfast as well. But like, there's things that I've written down here, like Waldorf Astoria, Peacock Alley, said Regis, Cana. What like these?
Yeah. So
these are worldwide brands, like.
They are. So the work with Waldorf, we had this opportunity a couple of years ago to rebrand the lobby bar of Waldorf Astoria, New York, which then turned into be this global rollout for, at the time, I think 26 hotels, now over 30 plus worldwide. So, you know, our work that was created here in Belfast is showing up in Asia, Africa, America, Europe, and in these 5-star hotels and resorts all around the world. And that's incredible. But that has then led to this sort of flutter of luxury brands approaching us and working alongside us. So we've just finished a project in the Dominican Republic for St. Regis, where we developed, concepted, and named and designed 10 food and beverage concepts inside one hotel. And it's a stunning property. We're hopefully getting the chance to go see it in real life soon.
You haven't seen it yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
It literally opened like a month ago, and it's been a complete labor of love. We worked on it for probably 2 years, but 10 different food and beverage concepts, all under sort of one umbrella, all sort of speaking to one another. And again, we started with strategy. Love this idea of how they could all be rooted in nature and sort of tech influence from the colors of the Dominican Republic and the nature around the property. And we've created these 10 beautiful, unique brands. And, you know, you're looking at this portfolio of work now, which is now leading to more luxury resorts and, you know, work with other luxury brands from Marriott and Hilton. And, you know, I keep saying it, but it's like these pinch me moments where it's just like, this is amazing that, yes, we have this international team of London and New York and Belfast, but most of our design output is coming from here, you know, from our lead designer and senior designers in Belfast with myself. And it's incredible that it's having this like global reach, that we're sitting in Belfast doing work for a 5-star hotel in Amsterdam, to a 5-star resort in Dominican Republic, to, you know, we're designing a signature restaurant inside Grand Central Terminal in New York at the moment. And I was there a couple of months ago, standing in the middle of Grand Central being like, I can't believe that we have this opportunity to design restaurants in one of the most iconic spaces in the world. So there's a lot of those moments at the moment where we are completely pinching ourselves. And, you know, that client that I mentioned, Joe, our very first client, 7 years ago, we're designing a restaurant for him, doing the interior design, the branding, website, etc. And it's steps away from World Trade Center. And I was on site with him 6 weeks ago. You walk out the door and you see the World Trade Center in front of you, and you think, like, we've come a long way from doing a website for him 6 years ago to now doing a fully fledged built out restaurant in the center of downtown Manhattan. So yeah, there's a lot of cool projects happening at the moment.
And I just, like, I only know you a short time, but I just know now why Neighbourhood has happened. Because talk to us, because you've learned all of this, you've seen all of this, your passion is all of this. Yeah. It was always going to lead, I think, because of how you are, to it actually being happening on your terms.
Yeah, and you know, that's that was always the ambition or dream, is that you could take these learnings and these experiences from some of the world's best brands and these incredible brands like Hilton and Marriott, and learn from them and learn from the experiences of working alongside them. How do you take that and apply it to maybe something that you own and operate? And over 3 years ago, my business partner and good friend Oshin, he was working at a coffee shop in Belfast. I was going to that coffee shop on a daily. We started talking. We had dinner one night, and he's like, I think I'm going to open my own restaurant, or sorry, I'm going to go open my own coffee shop. And we put our heads together, and I was like, well, I can do the brand and the interior and the marketing and that side of things. You're really great at the coffee and the operations and the day-to-day side. Like, we should combine these skills together. And, a couple of weeks later, here we are setting up a company in Company's House, and we're finding a location for this coffee shop. And, over the last 2.5 years, like, it's been a hell of a journey, in that our first one burnt down after 10 months,
Right.
which was not pleasant. We then moved into a temporary location in Commercial Court with Niall and Joanne, and Willie Jack was an amazing supporter to us. We were there for a little over 18 months, and then we finally moved to our sort of new, hopefully forever home on Donegal Street, sort of on the corner of Talbot and Donegal Street in Belfast. And we've got this 80 plus seater, beautiful cafe that we've poured, every inch of ourselves into, and it's doing tremendously well, and it's been really well received.
Called
Neighbourhood.
Yeah. And like you talked about, you do the strategy and the direction and the creative and marketing, and Oisín does the coffee and the operations. Who does the eggs? Who does the Turkish eggs?
A wonderful team of chefs. Yes, I wish I could. I wish I could make them, but no.
But it is. I just went this morning before you came and picked us all up our cruffins. Like, seriously, the girl actually, Neve, that was working there, was telling me what a cruffin was. But what you've created there from 7:30 this morning, packed, that feeling, that neighbourhood, I just loved it. I could feel it straight away.
And so, so much of that is Oisín and the incredible team there. Like, I think a brand and a design is only, as good as it can be. A space is lovely and interiors are important, brand is important, but that experience and that hospitality is very much Oisín and the team, and they're so good at that. And I think that's what makes Neighbourhood. We have this incredible team that cares so much about a guest experience and care so much about the people who come and experience Neighbourhood. So that level of hospitality is super important. But I think what I've learnt from Neighbourhood is that, if you can apply what you're good at and you match it with somebody else, Oisín, who's excellent in terms of hospitality and coffee, it is a good recipe for success. So hopefully in our future we see more of that happening, be it, newer concepts or more interesting things that we do in our future, where we can take our incredible team that we have here at Crown and build interesting, compelling concepts for the future that we can own and operate. That's definitely like the future ambition.
You're never stopping, are you? Because you also have created, and I thought this was a deadly idea, not idea, like a vision, where you were bringing all these things to the table, and then people would go away and try to create that look internally, but they weren't maybe seeing what. So what have you done in that space?
In terms of interiors?
Yes.
Yeah. So, when you say to people that you design for hospitality, they naturally, automatically go to like the built environment, the physical space. And, for, over 4 years, we were so focused on the strategy, the storytelling, the branding piece. We did some websites and we would offer some social media. But we never really had our foot in the door when it came to the actual interior design. And that is such a crucial part to hospitality. It's how you're making somebody feel, in that built environment. So it was always so natural for us to have that progression to go into it. And it was about when rather than, how or why. We always wanted to do it. It was just finding the opportune time. And we had an amazing interior designer that had moved back from London to Belfast, who joined our team. And over the last year, we've really snowballed these incredible interior design projects where, as I said, we're designing restaurants in New York and Boston. We're designing 3 or 4 different things on the island of Ireland. We've got some work in the UK. We're doing a lot of conceptual design work for some of these hotel brands. And that interior design element is like the perfect piece of the jigsaw now, where we can say to an owner or a developer, or somebody who just has an idea of hospitality, come to us, speak to Crown Creative, and we'll cover every aspect of the experience or of the journey that you're going to go on, because we can start with strategy, we can do your branding, we can do your interiors, we can do your web. We are your sort of one-stop shop that really cares and understands hospitality, and you don't need to go and speak to all these different partners who then may not communicate together, and you get different looking website to what you have, a different looking interior, you've got a different looking brand to what your interior design looks like. And I think for us that we can have this cohesive, holistic team that looks after hospitality as a whole, and we can tackle it through one team. And we're really like tight-knit, very collaborative team. So our interior designer will join a strategy call, and our design director will join an interior design call, because we know that those inputs can be so valuable, even though it might not be an interior design scope. Our interior designer listening to the project and giving her input or her take on things is super important. So as I said, we've launched that 12 months ago, and it's, been an amazing sort of success so far.
How do you manage your busy mind? You talked about this before we came on, like you are laser focused now, and that has helped you be more, I suppose, strategic. Like the fact that you niche down to just be hospitality and all. We talked about that. Do you think that helps you curtail your?
It does, yeah. I think if you
could do this, I could do that.
If you can find a niche,
yeah,
and double down on it, like brilliant. I think that's advice that I would give, but I think that niche has to come from a point of passion and a point of real interest. Like I love hospitality, I love the world of hospitality, I love going to hotels and restaurants and travel and seeing and experiencing things. So if you can bring that level of passion to your work, then, it doesn't really feel like work. And I know that's so like cliche to say, but my dad would always say, if you love what you do, then it doesn't really feel like work. And honestly, I feel like that.
Yeah.
There are definitely tough days, and there's stress that comes with running a business and managing a team. But I love what I do. I love the world of hospitality. So being able to double down on that niche has sort of allowed the busy brain mentality to focus in on the things that we really want to do. And we can be quite, we're fortunate enough to be quite selective of who we work with and who we want to work with. And that's really important too, because as we were saying sort of before we started, you can say yes to anything that comes through the inbox, and you just become busy fools, and you almost start to lose the run of yourself of why you even started. And when you run your own business, it can be very isolating, it can be very lonely at times, and you're the one that you have to talk to yourself to go, why are you doing this? Are you doing it for the right reasons? And if you can do it for the reason, like I love what I do, and we can be selective of who we work with, and you have a great team around you, which I do, that's so important.
It really is. And, yeah, you can lose the run of yourself. Sure, whenever people be talking to me about different things, I'm like, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. And they're like, Mary that works along with me, she's like, Caroline, come on. Sometimes you need to rein yourself in, be focused on what you're good at, what you're passionate about. And you and I have talked before we come on that things are changing, especially in hospitality. People are realising that branding and strategy and that feeling is so important now. Like, do you see that? They're starting to take it more seriously.
Yeah, definitely. And like we saw that firsthand 7-8 years ago in New York, at just like the level and standard that restaurants and coffee shops and pizza slice stores go to the level of brand and interior design. And we can see that trickle down, you sort of distill into smaller cities and smaller concepts where, I'm seeing new concepts open in Belfast and the island of Ireland that are really well designed, and they've hired an interior designer, and they've paid for a good website, and they've paid for a good brand, and like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations, that's brilliant, and that's good for everybody, because there's a level of appreciation of the craft and the effort it takes to create compelling brands, rather than going to IKEA and buying everything and putting a sign over the door. And I get budget is depending on a lot of people, but I do think that level of appreciation of the craft of how to create brands and how to create, interior experiences is becoming more and more sought after, and more like justified in terms of why people should spend money on it, because the customers and the guests, they expect it. Our
That's what I was going
expectations
to
are
say.
so much higher.
They're so high now.
And it's because we can see beautiful spaces all over the world on our phones, and we can scroll through Instagram, scroll through TikTok, and see what good design looks like. 20 years ago, you didn't, unless you're really well traveled and you got to see amazing things through travel. But now we can travel with our phone in our hand and see beautiful restaurants and beautiful coffee shops and incredible experiences. And
Our expectations are
our
high.
expectations are so high that your local coffee shop or your local restaurant is now having to compete at a certain level, which I think is a good thing, where there's a deeper, as an appreciation for what we do. But yeah, I do think we are becoming a lot smarter, and our expectations are a lot higher in terms of what good looks like.
And what I feel as a consumer, as a customer, is food, coffee, edible goods, drinks are all at a very high level of price now. Whether you go somewhere that perhaps hasn't thought of that brand, and it's still dear.
Yep.
When you go to it's nearly the same.
Yep.
So I as a consumer, always I'm like walking in going, oh, I don't feel like, even though that's 25 quid there for that salad, I'm like, I don't feel like it's worth it.
Yep.
Even though the salad might be lovely.
Yep.
So it's a funny that's all done to us, but it's good.
And I think that jigsaw, that like in terms of like the food can be good, but are all the other factors at play? Like, have they thought about the sound, and have they thought about the bathrooms? Are they nice? Have they thought about the menu that you're holding? They thought about the actual hospitality that you're getting? You know, I think as I said, our standards are getting higher, our expectations are getting higher, but I think restaurants or cafes or any sort of hospitality experience that's just resting on one laurel, that we have great food and that's enough for us, or we've got great brand but terrible experience, that's not what the future looks like, in my opinion. I think people do have to consider all those different aspects for success, and like I hope it's what we're trying to do our very hardest at Neighbourhood. Is, I care very deeply in terms of the brand and the interior design and that experience, and Oisin cares an awful lot about the coffee and the hospitality experience and the food and the training of staff, that they're knowledgeable when they're talking about coffee or when they're talking about the food. And I think if you can combine all those different pieces of the jigsaw or the pieces of the puzzle, that's ultimately what leads to like success and what leads to you being busy, because you can tell when you experience things, do people actually care? Like, do they put a bit of love and effort into this versus it's just another chain restaurant or it's just another logo over the door? And I think that's what we're so rich with here, certainly in Belfast, and even on the island of Ireland, we're very rich with local, independent, owner-founded, owner-run restaurants and cafes, which is great because there is an authentic story and there's an authentic care and almost like diligence to them running that versus
a chain
that that turn up to a city and rock up with the same sort of boilerplate and the same rollout, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, and even for those listening, and I was a small retail owner myself for years, it's always sometimes comes down to budget.
Yep.
But there is a way to create these things without that big massive scale you've just talked about. It's about how that person makes you feel. Is the menu clean when you get it?
Exactly.
And but
so much of it is the simple stuff. And I do think that starts with that level of care and attention. We started our first Neighbourhood on a shoestring budget. We painted it ourselves, and we did everything ourselves, and it was a complete hash together that Oisin and I could do. But I think why people gravitated to it and supported us and liked what we were doing was that they knew that it was two young guys who really cared about what they were doing. We weren't half-assing it. We tried our hardest with everything we did, and that was from the people that we hired, the training that we provided to those staff, and the level of products that we were bringing in, and ensuring that we were delivering quality. If you're going to charge somebody a decent price for something, you should really care, rather than trying to make the most profit. You should actually just care what you're delivering.
So true. And so for somebody just starting out, would that be your advice to them then?
Yeah, give a shit, care.
Yeah, give a shit. I love that's going to be your clickbait on YouTube.
Just give a shit, yeah. But honestly, it's like it's so cliche, or it's so easy to say, but I think there's so many businesses being started now because it almost feels easy, or there's a glamorization of it where it's like it's great to be your own boss and it's great to be the owner of this or owner of that. But I go back to like, why are you doing it? Like, do you actually care? Do you give a shit about what you're trying to do? And that can be in any vertical. It's just not hospitality, but like,
Yeah,
how
of
you start a
course.
business, you should give a shit. You should care and put passion and energy, because that's what will keep you going through the dark days and the shitty days if nobody turns up, or the days where the
You get
client doesn't
no's
pay
all
you
the
on time,
time.
or you get a no, and you're a little overstretched. That passion carries you through the crappy days.
So true. Are you ready for some quick fire questions?
Sure.
You said to me, an hour?
I know.
An hour? What time are we at now? And I could talk to you for another hour, but I'll not put you through that torture. I've got some quick fire questions for you. New York City bagel or Belfast bap?
Bagel from Frankel's in Brooklyn. I'll be specific, give you the full bagel, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
We'll tag those guys, and that's on our list the next time we go. A brand you'd love to rebrand just for the challenge. I hate even asking this because you're going to, your mind's going to be spinning, but a brand you'd love to rebrand just for the crack.
Guinness.
Oh.
Not to like rebrand them to like tear it up and start again, but like what an amazing brand to work with, because I love Guinness. Guinness is Ireland. I love Ireland. Like the idea of like working alongside Guinness or doing something that would be cool.
Let's cut this wee bit.
Yeah, just send it to Guinness.
Send it to them. You heard it on the Dig podcast.
Give us a ring.
Client feedback that you'll never forget, either good or bad.
Client good feedback.
Good.
So this is a long story. I'll make it short. We are working on this restaurant in a hotel in Amsterdam, luxury hotel. Won't name the name, but we named the restaurant, and we did all this research of how we could find the name for it, and we named it after a tulip. And obviously Holland is known for their tulips, but this tulip was big in the 17th century, where it was called tulip mania, and it was one tulip bulb was auctioned off for 30 or 60 acres of land, and we named this restaurant after the tulip, made this beautiful story and presented it to the client. They loved it. So we went into the branding. 10 weeks later, we went back and said, there's your brand, and we ran through the brand guidelines with them, the brand presentation, and they loved it. And at the end of the call, they said, you guys have been busy over the last couple of months, but we have also been busy. And shared her screen, the hotel manager, and she had taken the research that we had done to a laboratory and created a custom bulb for the hotel and for the restaurant, and showed us a field of thousands of tulips growing from this. And like, Kate and I were sitting at the other end of the call being like, did they just plant an entire field of tulips over a restaurant that we named? So that feedback, we were, again, pinching ourselves being like, that's a pretty cool thing to happen. So I'll always remember that. I said I could retire after that. It was a pretty cool moment.
That is. And are we going to leave the worst advice?
Yeah,
or the worst?
We're going to leave that one.
The app or tool you can't live without when you're working?
Slack, because we have teams all over and different time zones. We have strategists in Europe, and we have our team in New York. We have our designers in London, and our team in Belfast, and we all communicate via Slack. So that's where work gets done. Yeah.
Deadly. The biggest creative pet peeve?
Saying more rather than doing less. I'm a big fan of like less is more, and sometimes it's about restraint when it comes to design. It's like what you don't do is probably more important than what you do. Okay. So I think like it grinds me a bit when I see like lots of stuff on a page, or like trying too many ideas for one brand. And I always try to like tell our designers like zoom out, take a step back from it. Is it too busy? Is it a bit too noisy? Are you trying to communicate too much? Like brands should be easy to understand. Like the moment that I was reading something, reading Keith McNally's book over the weekend. Keith McNally's this famous restaurateur in New York, and he said good design is like cinematography. It should never be seen, or should never be noticed. So when you're looking at a film, you should be immersed completely into the film and not paying attention to the cinematography of the film. And I think good design is the same. If you almost like notice the design, you're probably doing something wrong. Okay. Like it should just be good.
And that's why you're the best at what you do. Most inspiring city you've ever worked in?
New York, definitely.
Irish business you admire when it comes to creativity?
We were just chatting about them off camera, but Kieran McGuigan, what he's doing with Orior, which is a furniture brand that started in Newry. He's got showroom in New York, in Soho, and has a brand called the Malin, which is our office in New York. I honestly think what Kieran is doing is so inspiring, and in terms of what he's doing with sort of classic pieces of furniture and reimagining them and giving them a sort of contemporary twist and spin to them. The designs are incredible. He tells an amazing like Irish like authenticity story in terms of he's getting his marble from Connemara, you know, for these beautiful coffee tables that cost thousands, but the story that he's telling and the craft that goes into the products and the furniture he's making is amazing. And again, like a lot of designers and creatives know about Orior, but I think they need to be more celebrated on the island of Ireland because what they're doing is just tremendous.
I'm all in. I went and looked them up on LinkedIn, and that yellow sofa and the yellow cab in America, I'm hooked already, so I can't wait to follow his journey as well. Best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of business advice.
I know that's like a cliche thing to ask, but I always love to hear what's the best thing.
So when I started Crown Creative, where I was like in the headspace of starting it, I have an amazing friend and mentor in New York called Joe, and he gave me Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point book, and I remember reading it of just like there's moments in your life that are big moments that you take that risk or you take that leap of faith, and it sort of goes back to the just give a shit. Like, I think that there's moments that just present themselves where you have to take that opportunity by two hands and run with it. And I think if anybody's out there and they've got that thinking or that feeling where it's right in front of you, grab it and run with it, because what's the worst that can happen?
And that's that email to Jack and Sean
Exactly.
coming through there. And my last one was, if you weren't doing this, which I don't even know why I'm asking this after, because this was my quick fire question before I talked to you for an hour and a bit. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing? But I don't think you would ever be doing anything else, would you? Or is there anything else?
No, I don't think so. Like, I love what I do, and I'm like very fortunate to do this for a job. So again, maybe the only thing I would do is like more restaurants and hotels and bars, like in terms of owning or operating if I wasn't designing. But again, I think there's a layer of design that would feed into that. But no, I'm so lucky that I get to do this for a job. It doesn't feel like a job.
And aren't we lucky too that we then get concepts and businesses like Neighbourhood that we can go and get cruffins in? Didn't even know there was such a thing. We're now, like, I'm all in. So I want to know how we're going to be able to follow along the journey. Where's the best place to watch what you guys are up to?
Instagram, LinkedIn, Crown Creative, or our website, crowncreative.com. We've got some very exciting projects about to launch, and some interesting ideas coming in the future.
No doubt. I have no doubt, and I can't wait. I think you're fascinating, what you've done, what you've achieved. I just think it's incredible. Flying the flag for Ireland all over the world is what you're doing, I think, and we are also proud of you here. I'm honoured to have met you. Thank you for being my guest on the Dig podcast. And we've got 5 guests coming here today to this beautiful, your beautiful offices here in Belfast, and you've handed it over to the Dig team.
Have it. All yours. Yeah.
It's all ours. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you. Good man.